Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you very much for tuning in. I am Lucas Tietzen and this is Blues News Media. And today this is being recorded on December 5th in the year of our Corona 2020. It has been almost a year since the coronavirus has swept the world and thrown everything into chaos. So this episode is going to be incredibly timely since we are going to be discussing vaccine hesitancy and the different methods they are going to try and push people into getting these vaccinations. We're also going to be talking about the possibility of mandatory vaccinations. But before we get started, I would like to invite everybody to please like and subscribe to this video and channel. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Minds, Library, BitChute, and just please support the show and all the work that we do here, and make sure to share these articles and talk to about them with your friends and family. This is incredibly important. You could not pick a better time to be alive to fight for the future of humanity and freedom. But now, with that being said, freedom is greatly under attack right now and being demonized at that. Because as we see here with the vaccine that we're going to be talking about today, it is about to be rolling out. It is about to hit the streets and hit the people with all of its might. And we see that right now. And this, my heart goes out to the people in the UK. This is from CNN. The article is entitled, "The UK becomes first country to authorize Pfizer and BioNTech's," I don't know how they like to pronounce it, COVID-19 vaccine. First shots roll out next week. And it just opens with, "The United Kingdom has become the first Western nation to authorize a COVID-19 vaccine, a landmark moment in the coronavirus pandemic that paves the way for the first doses to be rolled out across the country next week." That's just next week, and this was written a couple of days ago. "Help is on the way," Health Secretary Matt Hancock announced Wednesday morning after UK regulators granted emergency authorization for a vaccine made by US pharmaceutical giant Pfizer and its German partner BioNTech, we'll call it. A final analysis of the phase 3 trial of the vaccine shows it was 95% effective in preventing infections, even in older adults, and caused no serious safety concerns, Pfizer said last month. But let's take a moment and talk about that 95% effectiveness in preventing infections. That is in of itself a load of crock, because if you go and read all those articles that were related to the effectiveness rate, it was really nothing more than a public statement. They didn't release any numbers, any data backing up their claim. But naturally, then Pfizer's stocks skyrocketed and everything's all hunky-dory, right? Basically, they just make wild promises and we're all just supposed to gobble it up and be like, "Oh yeah, here's my arm, shoot me up." It's just crazy. It's crazy. This is the most rushed vaccine in history. It usually takes, I've been told, 7 to 10 years to make a safe and effective vaccine. And now I'm just supposed to believe that in less than a year, we made a incredibly experimental, never been perfected before mRNA vaccine, and everybody's doing this and it's all just turning up fine. That is in of itself a total and complete lie. But this is being rolled out next week, they say. It is, friends, it is about to get crazy. But the UK is not alone in this regard. This here is from Yahoo Finance. This just came up in the twilight days of November. But this article is entitled, "FDA will consider Pfizer vaccine for emergency use on December 10th. We're recording this on the 5th. That's just 5 days away before the FDA is going to possibly give, and most likely will, give emergency use for this COVID-19 experimental, I want to stress that, experimental vaccine. But they say the same thing. Oh, praise the pharmaceutical corporations. They have made a vaccine that is 95% effective and protects the elderly. Oh, great. Oh, goody. I'm sure we can all just relax now that the smiling, benevolent pharmaceutical giants have come and said, there's nothing to fear. There's nothing to worry about. We have found the miracle magic serum, and we can all just be happy and, give us a bunch of money and we'll sell it to you. Everything's great and safe, right? Well, fortunately, in my opinion, there has been a lot of questions being asked centered around this COVID-19 vaccine, as there should be. And we can look to that right now because especially doctors, who we should probably point to the most out of all of this, are questioning the vaccine. This is from Webb MD, and this article is entitled, Doctors Wary of Rushed COVID Vaccine, because it is rushed. In the United States, it is quite literally called Operation Warp Speed, that has been shrouded in secrecy and is led by the military. I don't know how much more you need to at least start thinking like, maybe I shouldn't trust this on the surface. Maybe I should dig a little deeper. But unfortunately, a lot of people have bought the hype that this is the deadly, crazy pandemic that we were promised in all of these, bogus articles back in the early days of 2020 and was prophesized by many forms of media. It's just not true. And now we need to start questioning this vaccine, which will probably be worse than the virus itself. I mean, the virus has a 99 plus survival rate on average. I think we need to keep that in mind. But this here says itself, only 17% of doctors say they will get a COVID-19 vaccine if it is authorized before all clinical trials have been completed, according to results of a Medscape poll. And I'm sure this number is way higher. I'm sure even after the bogus clinical trials are completed, that many doctors will even support this because it is so quick to have a vaccine rolled out like this. But only 17% of doctors are saying yes. And then we have here, the poll was first posted on Medscape.com on September 2nd. Of those responding, 17% of doctors said they would order or use the vaccine. 63% said no. A majority of doctors are like, no, I don't think so. I don't think I'm going to put people's lives at risk over this. And even 20% here said that they were unsure, and that younger doctors were more likely to say they would not get a vaccine under such circumstances. And if you jump down a little bit here, nurses were less likely than doctors to say yes. Only 11% said yes. 69% of them said no, and 20% said they were unsure. That is still an overwhelming majority of people saying, no, I'm not going to recommend this. I am not going to take it. And even the amount of people that are unsure outweighs the people that are saying, yes, I will take it. So I think people need to realize some people might just go ahead and take it because, they don't want to stick out or rock the boat or anything like that. It's okay to rock the boat. It is okay to question these things that, quite honestly, nobody really knows if it's going to work or be safe. We don't know that. And you are not alone if you question it. You are not some crazy conspiracy theorist, anti-vaxxer. You are somebody that can just read and it has some form of critical thinking in that noggin of yours and could say, hey, maybe this isn't the right choice. But doctors aren't alone in this. Many people themselves, average day people, are saying, we're not going to take it. This article here from the New York Post, it is entitled, Scientists Worry as More Americans Say They'll Refuse COVID-19 Vaccine. And it opens with, Tara Granger, 36, has worked as a nurse for 2 decades in Suffolk County, New York, and she and her 2 children have been vaccinated every year. Love vaccines, huh? Drugs are my life, she says. It's what I learn in school. But she's been questioning the promised upcoming vaccine for COVID-19, in large part because of what she's witnessed firsthand about the financial incentives for vaccines. It scares me that I got so many free lunches and free dinners because I pushed the flu vaccine. Granger says, what am I going to get when I push a COVID vaccine? Granger got sick from the coronavirus earlier this summer and said she did the opposite of what people said to do. I took my supplements and vitamins. I didn't go to the hospital to be put on a ventilator and die. I was smart enough to say, my immune system can fight this. I just have to find the right way to do it. That's incredibly powerful and incredibly right. If you follow anything, like the ventilators were killing more people. They got put on that stuff and they were dying. Many people unnecessarily died from that. It was terrible. But jumping down here to the meat and potatoes of this article, it's showing that she is not alone, I am not alone, and you, dear listeners, are not alone. A Pew Research poll from late September showed that about half of U.S. adults, 51%, wouldn't get a COVID-19 vaccine if it was available today. Now, this was back in September, and I don't think a few months really would have changed anything. But it does say here, it's been a big drop from 72% who said they'd get one back in May. Now, I am totally sure that a lot of these numbers are just I think they're being fudged because, naturally they need to be like, oh yeah, everybody's doing it. Everybody wants to do it. I don't have it pulled up here, but I mean, they even had, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, I believe, and good old baby Bush saying that they'll go on camera to get vaccinated just to convince people to get it. And maybe I'm just kooky conspiracy guy here. I bet they're not going to actually get the real COVID-19 vaccine. I'm sure they'll be given a nice little placebo, but it'll have the desired effect. And many people that worship their previous war criminal heroes will quickly march down to their local pharmacy and beg to have a needle stuck in them after that. But at least many people right here, right now, are questioning the safety and efficacy of this rushed, I want to stress that, rushed vaccine. And the last point on this is just showing that you are not alone. If you are watching this and you have doubts in your mind, you are not alone. Because in this one here, this is from Abc7.com, but this article is entitled 93% of Black residents in LA County don't intend to take COVID vaccine when available, the poll shows. And I invite you to, again, read all of these articles. They'll be included in the show notes. But 93%, that is, if you can do basic math, an overwhelming majority. Over 9 out of 10 people, Black people in LA County, will not get the vaccine. And rightfully so. And we can think of one thing immediately that is also referenced in this article. And it talks about the Tuskegee experiment, where Black residents were promised free health care from, the loving government. Well, I think it was like a university, if I'm not mistaken. But really, they were just trying to see how syphilis would go untreated, even though they knew at the time that penicillin was a great way to treat syphilis. They wanted to see the ramifications of syphilis unchecked. So they did a massive medical experiment on those people because they just wanted to see. They wanted to see what would happen, which is quite obviously just steeped in racism. And it's just disgusting. So I am glad people are remembering history and questioning what is going on right now. But this is a really big part. Government institutions and medical researchers have a long history of racism and using minority groups as their test subjects, as their playthings. And it is just completely disgusting. And if you want more information on that and the COVID-19 vaccine, I would invite you to go to unlimitedhangout.com. And this is the amazing journalist Whitney Webb's website where a lot of her, I believe all of her works are collected. But this one is incredibly powerful and plays off of what I was just talking about. And it's this article right here. And it is the Johns Hopkins CDC plan to mask medical experimentation on minorities as racial justice. And the gist of this article is saying that when the COVID vaccine becomes widely available, they're going to try and push it on minority groups under the guise of, racial justice, and it's, equitable, and it shows that we are progressing as a society and all that. Very pretty words that everybody would agree with, right? But then you kind of look deeper and you see that a lot of these people behind this are nothing but eugenicists and racists, and they are using, once again, these people are so, uncreative, are using minority groups as guinea pigs. And it is disgusting, and it needs to be called out right now. And that is why we are here to do that. But now let's say you're not going to get the vaccine. I'm not going to get the vaccine. Lots of people don't want to get it. This is widely known among pharmaceutical companies and governments. And guess what? They're not going to allow you to just be like, nope. Actually, I am a free, sovereign human being. I control my own life, my own destiny. It is the classic mantra, my body, my choice. It's never been about that. They don't care what you want. They don't care that it's your body. This is about money. This is about power. It's about control. And they're going to make sure that you get that vaccine if it's the last thing they do. And there are many ways that they are already prepared to either convince you, sway you, or ultimately indirectly force you to get the vaccine. And one of the big ways that they want to do this, we talked about Obama, Clinton, and Baby Bush going on stage and getting their placebo vaccine. That's just like sway the hearts and minds of the statists that are just so ingrained in the cult of politics. That's how some of them will get in or get the vaccine. And then there's another way. And that is right here. This article is entitled, "This stimulus plan would pay you $1,500 for getting the COVID-19 vaccine." They want to economically convince you to get the vaccine, an economic incentive. I'm sure a lot of people could use $1,500, right? I know I sure could. And people that are maybe unaware of the nature of the vaccine, how it's been rushed, the long, disgusting, dark history of medical experimentation, or all of the health effects that have been coming up in the clinical trials that are happening right now, like Pfizer and Moderna, which is also going to be rushed through. Maybe people are totally oblivious to that. So when they hear, $1,500 for a vaccine that I was probably going to get anyway because I don't know too much about it, I trust what I am told, because humans are generally trusting. They want to believe in the good of humanity. Sure, yeah, I'll get that vaccine. But this is just a way to convince people. This isn't some, benevolent way to be like, two birds, one stone, we'll vaccinate everybody and throw money around and it's all going to be great. It's going to be beautiful. No, this is subversion. It is trying to trick people into getting something that they don't need and can be detrimental to their health. Even more so than from a virus that has a 99% survival rate. And that reminds me, I just thought this was interesting because I'm supposed to take this vaccine that's all supposed to be really, really scary, even though it has a massive survival rate. I was just curious about the average death age of people with COVID, and then the general death rate, in all. And I ended up coming across this here, and this is just called average age of death from COVID-19, about same as normal life expectancy. I think that's pretty telling. And we've also been seeing that there hasn't really been any great excess of deaths in the year 2020, as if it was business as usual, as if you probably wouldn't even notice there was a pandemic going on right now, unless it was being blasted everywhere and everybody was wearing a mask and are being told to be scared and afraid. But this article opens up with, the average age of Americans who die from COVID-19 is approximately the same as the general life expectancy for the entire U.S. population, according to health data gathered from various sources. The National Vital Statistics System, an intergovernmental system managed by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, reports that Americans have a life expectancy of 78.7 years old. It's not really that old, but that's another discussion. Based on various reports of health department data, COVID-19 appears to be most lethal for Americans at or near that same age. In Massachusetts, for example, victims who have died from COVID have been 80 years old on average, according to state health department data released Friday. Data across other New England states also shows a consistent pattern. The average age of COVID deaths in Maine is 79, while Vermonters who fall victim to the virus are 77 years old on average. Now, isn't that just telling? We're told to completely upend our lives here. Wear a mask, shut down your business, implement social distancing, destroy the global economy, which then leads to malnutrition in many kids. And now an extra 10,000 kids are dying every month, which we have reported on before. And it's really it's destroying society right now. The measures, not the virus, the measures that the government is implementing is destroying people. And we're supposed to do this because of a virus that is killing people around the average life expectancy. Maybe I'm just a jerk that hates life, hates grandma, as all these people are saying. Or maybe I'm just not being played for a fool. Maybe I don't fear death so much as everybody else. Because guess what? You are going to die. It's just going to happen. And it's cosmically tragic. But it would be foolish to destroy everybody in the entire global society over something like this. I find it ridiculous on its face, and it's just another telling part of this whole COVID fiasco. But that's just a side note, because now I also really want to get into how are they going to convince you, force you to get this vaccine. And another really big aspect of this that's going to be scary once this whole thing comes out is that your place of work, your employer might actually force you to get this. And it's this one is saying that COVID-19 vaccine, can businesses force workers to get vaccinated, right? And this article opens with, the federal government said the Pfizer vaccine will be shipped as early as Friday, so people can get shots as soon as emergency authorization is granted. Officials with Operation Warp Speed said they believe that authorization will happen by December 15th, just 10 days away. When it does become available, can employers force you to get the vaccine in order to keep your job? This would be a really good conversation to have with your employer right here, right now. And if they say yes, you may want to talk to them and share this information. If they're not about it, it's hard, but you may want to try and find another job if you can, because this is coming. But it continues with factory workers, grocery store employees, teachers, and healthcare workers are all people who might benefit from getting a COVID-19 vaccine once one becomes available. But what if they don't want to take it, right? Can they be compelled to as a condition for employment? Employers can legally require people to get vaccinated, Abc7 legal analyst Gil Soffer said. Some employers already require their employees to get vaccinated for the flu, for example. And while healthcare organizations and others have long required their employees to get a flu shot, the biggest difference here is that for the time being, any COVID vaccine will be authorized for emergency use only. So, I mean, this is being laid down. The groundwork is being laid down. This is being discussed. It is saying you are going to have to get one to participate in society. They've been saying that you may need to get one in order to even go into the grocery store. Imagine that. You can't eat unless you get this vaccine. You can't make money and support your family unless you get this vaccine. They may not come to your door with the military injecting you in the arm that a lot of people view forced vaccination as, but this is as good as any. This is just one small step of soft tyranny again until it goes hard. This, by all intents and purposes, is forced vaccination. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's just how it is. And even here, we have states have authority to fine or jail people who refuse coronavirus vaccine, attorney says. They're openly discussing this. If you do not submit, you're the enemy at this point. You can't work, you can't eat, you can't play, you can be fined, you can be jailed. Does this not infuriate you? And if it doesn't, you really need to have a good look at yourself in the mirror and say, what do I believe in? This completely goes against the very basic ideas of natural law of you are in charge of your own being. Nobody else can force you to do anything. Especially a corrupt institution with a long track record of hurting people like the government. But this here, let's read a bit of it. As drug makers race to develop a vaccine against the coronavirus, several legal questions are emerging, rightfully so. Could the government require people to get it? Could people who refuse to roll up their sleeves get banned from stores or lose their jobs, like we just talked about? The short answer is yes, according to Dav Fox, a law professor and the director of the Center for Health Law Policy and Bioethics at the University of San Diego. States can compel vaccinations in more or less intrusive ways, he said in an interview. They can limit access to schools or services or jobs if people don't get vaccinated. They could force them to pay a fine or even lock them up in jail. This is it. This is what they want. This is the wet dream of the state, of institutions of power. They want to have total control of your life. That if you do not play ball, you cannot operate within society, to the extent that your kids can't go to school, you can't go to work, you can't eat, and they can fine the hell out of you or just lock you up like an animal. This is it. This is what it has all been building up to. And if many of you are thinking like, oh no, that can't be, that's crazy talk, even though the media themselves are the ones talking about it, I would invite you to read this beautiful, disgusting little paper called the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act. Now, this version here was made in 2001. I think one was made in the year 2000 as well. And that was like before the dark winter scenarios and the anthrax attacks, which kind of helped push this thing to be adopted everywhere. But this greatly discusses the state's power, and like states as in like the United States, not the federal government, but the states themselves, to implement wide sweeping emergency health powers. Now, this is what do you want to call it? Like a framework that was given to all the states so that they could take it and pass separate versions, different versions in the varying state legislatures. But most of the states took it and adopted it, maybe tweaked a few things, but ultimately accepted this Model State Emergency Health Powers Act. And a lot of it talks about they are able to forcibly isolate you or quarantine you. They can vaccinate you if they want, and then fine or jail you if you resist. Like, this has been planned out years ago. This has all been planned out. This one even talks about how it could, taking people from their homes and quarantining them in public or private buildings. They could just take you out of your house. And that's been talked about in the media many times since this all started. The CDC camps, New Zealand was talking about having taking people out of their home and putting them in, what do you want to call them? Isolation centers, whatever cute, fun, normal words that we want to use to get everybody on board and, mask the tyranny that is actually festering under the surface. I would invite you, people in the states, please type in your state and then emergency health powers and just see, what can your governor do in the state of emergency that we're in right now? Listeners that are not in the United States, look up your province's or your country's Health Powers Act and see how much control over your lives they have right now. Because I bet it will make your blood run cold. And then I also want to show everybody, kind of in the same vein of how they just have us held hostage at this point, unless we all stand up and say, no, I'm not going to accept it. This goes against my values, my morals. You can't force me to do anything I don't want to do. Well, these people think they can. And that's why I would like to direct you to this. This is from MSN. And this is called Get a Vaccine If You Want Your Freedoms Back. Deputy Chief Medical Officer tells Britons. And we were just talking about how they've approved it and it's rolling out next week. It's coming. It's here. It's not even coming. It's here right now. It's not on the horizon. It's a few feet in front of your face. But this article opens with, harsh COVID-19 restrictions will have to stay in place longer if Britons refuse to be vaccinated, the Deputy Chief Medical Officer has warned. Submit or keep all these restrictions, even though people like Anthony Fauci have said these measures aren't going anywhere. You're still going to have to be masked up. You're still going to have to social distance. Welcome to the new normal. We're not going back. But it continues. Jonathan Van Tam said the entire country was fed up with social distancing, but said the dream of ending it lay in the hands of ordinary people, weighing up whether to have a jab. That's up to you guys. If you want that dream to come true as quickly as it can come true, then you have to take the vaccine when it is offered to you, he told a press conference. Low uptake will almost certainly make restrictions last longer. I mean, they're saying it. Just take the jab. Just submit. Just do what you're told. What did Anthony Fauci say? Nobody wants to, be told what to do, but now is the time to do what you're told. Your children, your sheep, your cattle, you can't do anything. That's what these people think. You operate on such a low cognitive ability. You need to be told and directed what to do. That's how they think of you. That's what they're saying. You do this and you can go back to normal. It's okay. Just submit. And that's why I'm here to tell you, no, do not submit. Because if we continue down this road I mean, a precedent is set. If we let them say, oh yeah, you have to take this, or you can't go to work, you can't go to school, you can't eat, you can't do all these things, you can't operate within society, what do you think is going to happen when the next pandemic comes along? Do you think like, oh no, that one, even if it's an even crazier vaccine that is way more dangerous, they won't make us do that. They won't force us to take another one. No, a precedent is set. They can make you take anything at that point. You would sign over your bodily autonomy, not just for yourself, but for your children and the future generations that have yet to come to this earth. We're basically signing away our bodies at that point. And that's why we need to resist it now. And just to show you another little glimpse of what is coming, of what will soon be here, is this. And this article is entitled, Americans Will Get Government-Issued Cards to Keep Track of Their COVID-19 Vaccinations. Now, when this story broke, everybody was basically like, oh, you see, papers, please, you know, they're gonna track you and whatnot, which is the case. They are going to do that. And now this is them backtracking. They're like, no, it's not to show your proof of vaccination. It's just to show when you need to come back because you got to get 2 jabs, even though they talked about how you probably won't want to come back because it's going to make you feel like hell. It's going to make you feel terrible once you get that first jab, but you need to come back for the second one. And that's why they have this paper. This is nothing more than getting you used to carrying around identification that shows that you got a vaccination. This is conditioning at this point. This is trying to break you down and show that you will need to carry this in the future to show that you got vaccinated. And if that seems crazy, if that seems far and out there, I would like to invite you to look into China when this was all kicking off. They did this first. They had QR codes. And these QR codes basically had red that showed that you were very, very dangerous. You could be infected and all that crap. Yellow is that, oh, you might want to stay home. You don't know. And then green was, oh, you're good to go. Like China was doing this when this whole pandemic was first really hitting the world. And now, lo and behold, Britain's going to be on the same path. This is from the Daily Mail, and this article is entitled, Britons Vaccinated Against COVID May Get QR Codes on Their Mobile Phones to Allow Them into Football Matches. And I'm sure anybody with 2 brain cells to rub together can see where this is going. It was tested in China. People accepted it. It's going to be rolled out in Britain. And people are going to accept it. Hopefully not. I hope there is a nice big pushback when this all hits the fan. But this just shows you, it's here. It's coming. You're going to have papers, please. Let me see your phone, please. Let me scan it to make sure you're okay to come into a sports stadium, to come into work, to go to the grocery store. Do you see how this works? And we've already seen this also. Like, I don't have this article pulled up, but even on planes, to get on a plane, you're going to have to show a proof of vaccination. And that way, I'm sure that you don't have to, quarantine for 2 weeks when you go on your vacation like they say that you should. You can just go right out there and live your life because we gave you the permission to do so. It's disgusting. It is disgusting and it needs to be resisted. And I know we can do it. I know it's hard and it's going to be scary, but we need to spread this information. We need to talk to people about all this stuff, the dangers of the vaccine, of how it was rushed out, and maybe, just maybe, bring it back to the very basic ideas of personal freedom and liberty and being able to dictate what happens to your own body and your own life. I think that would be a really good starting point and something to build off of, as saying, no, nobody can tell me what to do. Nobody rules me but me. And if you think that you do have that right, if you think that you can force somebody to get a vaccine, to force them to social distance, to force them to wear a mask, you need to go back to square one, because you, my friend, are still lost. But I know, at least I have to believe, that anybody and everybody can get there. They just have to try. They have to disconnect from the mainstream media, realize that the state and pharmaceutical companies are not their friends. But it's going to take effort. It's going to take you, dear listeners, to get out there and teach people these things. That is why I invite you to please like, share, subscribe to this video and channel. We put our videos out on YouTube, BitChute, and Library. You can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Minds. If you want to contact me, but you don't want to get at me through any of those platforms, please feel free to email me at bluesnewsmedia@protonmail.com in case you want to let me know how I'm doing. Maybe I got something wrong, something right, or that you want to share an article that I should report on. My inboxes are open. So thank you very much for listening, everybody. I truly appreciate it. And this is just the most important time to get this information out there. And I know that we can do it. It's just going to take a little effort. But as always, thank you very much for listening. I am Lucas Tietzen of Blues News Media. And if you take one thing away from all of this, hopefully it is this: ignorance isn't bliss.